Eleanor looked at the calendar, a small frown creasing her brow. Her 60th birthday was just around the corner, a milestone that felt less like a celebration and more like a gentle push towards an unknown edge. For as long as she could remember, Eleanor had been the steady heart of her family. Her days were a happy blur of school runs, baking cookies for her children's friends, and making sure her husband, Richard, always had a warm meal after a long day at work. She'd spent countless hours volunteering at school, cheering at soccer games, and hosting holiday dinners that sparkled with laughter. Her own dreams, the ones she had in her younger days, had quietly taken a back seat. There was no room for them, she often told herself, not with a growing family that needed her so much. And she didn't regret it, not truly. Her children, now grown and living their own lives, were her pride and joy. Richard, her partner for over 3 decades, was her rock. Yet, as the big 6-0 approached, a tiny, unfamiliar whisper started in her mind. It wasn't sadness exactly, but a quiet sense of, what now? The house felt a little too quiet. The routine, a little too predictable. Eleanor loved her family deeply, but as this new decade loomed, she found herself wondering if there was more to her own story, a chapter she hadn't yet begun to write. The quiet hum of Eleanor's life, that gentle what now feeling, was about to be shattered. It started, innocently enough, with a misplaced phone. Richard had rushed out for an early meeting, leaving his phone on the kitchen counter. A text message popped up, bright and insistent, from a name Eleanor didn't recognize. "Can't wait for our trip next month, darling." A cold knot formed in Eleanor's stomach. Darling? Trip? Richard never used that word with her, and they certainly hadn't planned a trip. Her fingers, trembling slightly, unlocked the phone. What she saw next was a whirlwind of images and messages that ripped through her world like a tornado. Photos of Richard with another woman, younger, smiling, in places he'd told Eleanor he was on business trips. Messages filled with affectionate words. Plans for a future that didn't include her. A whole other life unfolding right before her eyes. 35 years. 3.5 decades of shared dreams, quiet mornings, family holidays, and unwavering trust. All of it, in a single moment, turned into a cruel lie. The woman she thought she was, the life she believed she had, crumbled into dust. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was as if the ground beneath her feet had vanished. The man she loved, her rock, had built a secret world, and she, the steady heart of their family, had been completely unaware. The pain was sharp, immediate, and utterly devastating. The immediate aftermath of Richard's betrayal was a dizzying mix of raw feelings. Eleanor felt as if she were adrift in a vast, empty ocean, with no land in sight. Anger burned bright, a searing heat that consumed her. How could he? How could the man she had loved and trusted completely, the father of her children, have done this? Every shared memory, every tender word, now felt tainted, twisted into a lie. She wanted to scream, to smash things, to make the unbearable ache in her chest go away. But beneath the rage was a profound sadness, a deep, aching sense of loss. It wasn't just the loss of her marriage, but the loss of her future, the one she had always imagined with Richard by her side. Who was she now without the title of Richard's wife, without the familiar rhythm of their life together? She felt invisible, a forgotten character in her own story. The betrayal left her feeling utterly lost, as if all her internal maps had been erased. The simple question of, "What do I do now?" hung heavy in the air, without any answer. Each day was a struggle, filled with tears and a paralyzing uncertainty. How do you rebuild a life when the foundation has been shattered into a million pieces? How do you move forward when every direction seems equally bleak? Eleanor was adrift, battered by a storm of emotions, and utterly unsure how to find her way back to shore. Days turned into weeks, each one a heavy weight. Eleanor spent too much time staring blankly out the window, tears often streaming down her face. She felt useless, her purpose gone. One afternoon, while sitting in the quiet living room, surrounded by the echoes of a life that no longer felt real, her gaze fell upon an old, dusty photo album. Inside, among pictures of her children growing up, was a faded snapshot of a younger Eleanor, beaming, holding a certificate from a local volunteer award. A flicker of something, not joy, but recognition, stirred within her. She remembered that time, before marriage and children, when she had spent her evenings helping at a soup kitchen, listening to people's stories, offering comfort. It was a dream she'd had since she was a girl, to help others, to make a difference, however small. But then Richard came along, and the babies, and the house, and the dream had gently, steadily been tucked away, like a favorite book on a high shelf, waiting for a time that never seemed to arrive. Now in the wreckage of her life, that forgotten dream suddenly seemed to shine, a tiny beacon in the darkness. Helping others. That was it. That was what she loved to do. Perhaps, she thought, a fragile hope taking root. If she couldn't fix her own broken heart, she could at least try to mend a little bit of someone else's. The idea was a whisper, but it was the first clear thought she'd had in weeks, a tiny spark in the vast, empty space of her despair. The tiny spark of hope that had flickered to life in Eleanor's heart began to grow. It wasn't enough to make the pain disappear, but it was enough to make her move. She spent a morning researching local charities, looking for places that helped people directly. A small community center called The Haven caught her eye. It offered support and resources specifically for women in tough situations, women facing homelessness, job loss, or difficult family issues. Eleanor felt a pull towards it, a sense that these were people who truly needed a helping hand, perhaps even a listening ear. Taking the first step felt like climbing a very tall mountain. Her hands shook as she dialed the number. "Hello, I'm Eleanor," she said, her voice a little shaky. "I'm interested in volunteering." The woman on the other end, named Maria, was kind and welcoming. She invited Eleanor to come in the next day to learn more. Eleanor dressed carefully that morning, choosing a simple but neat outfit. Walking through the doors of the Haven, she felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. The center was warm and bustling, filled with the murmur of voices and the smell of fresh coffee. She saw women talking, reading, and working on computers. Maria greeted her with a warm smile, and for the first time in weeks, Eleanor felt a tiny flutter of anticipation, a hint that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. This was her first step on a new path, away from the shadows of betrayal and towards a brighter, more purposeful future. At the Haven, Eleanor quickly found herself surrounded by a different kind of family. The air was filled with kindness and understanding. She met Maria, the center's cheerful manager, who had a laugh that could brighten any room. There was also Clara, a retired teacher with sparkling eyes, who volunteered every Tuesday to help women with their resumes. And then there were the women who came for help, mothers, daughters, grandmothers, each with their own story, their own struggles, but all sharing a common thread of resilience. Eleanor started by helping in the kitchen, preparing simple meals, and then moved on to organizing donations of clothes and household items. As she worked, she began to talk, really talk, for the first time in months. With Clara, she shared bits and pieces of her own pain, finding that Clara listened not with pity, but with a deep understanding that only comes from lived experience. Clara, too, had faced hardships, and her calm wisdom was a soothing balm to Eleanor's wounded heart. Listening to the stories of the women at the center opened Eleanor's eyes. She heard tales of lost jobs, difficult marriages, and starting over in new cities. Their strength, their courage to face each day, inspired her. She realized that her own pain, while sharp, was part of a larger human experience of struggle and overcoming. Through these new connections, Eleanor began to feel less alone. The comfort of shared experiences and the new perspective she gained started to gently push back against the darkness that had surrounded her, slowly, steadily, filling her with a quiet sense of belonging. As Eleanor settled into her role at the Haven, her observations became sharper, more focused. She noticed a pattern among some of the women who came seeking help. While the center served women of all ages, there was a particular group that resonated deeply with Eleanor. Older women, often in their late 50s, 60s, or even 70s, who arrived with a quiet sadness in their eyes. Many of them had stories that echoed her own painful experience. They spoke of husbands who had left them after decades of marriage, or of discovering hidden secrets that shattered their trust. These women often felt doubly invisible. Not only had their partners betrayed them, but society seemed to forget them too. They talked about feeling too old to start over, too old to find new work, and too old to even dream of happiness again. They had poured their lives into their families, just like Eleanor, and now, with their children grown and their marriages broken, they felt adrift, without purpose. "Who am I now?" was a common, heartbreaking question Eleanor heard. They felt lost, not just in their circumstances, but in their very identity. Eleanor saw her own reflection in their weary faces and hesitant smiles. The anger and betrayal she had felt were mirrored in their quiet despair. She realized that while the Haven offered general support, there wasn't a specific space for these older women to truly heal, to rediscover their worth, and to find a new path forward. A powerful thought began to form in her mind. These women needed more than just a handout. They needed a hand up, a special kind of understanding, and a renewed sense of purpose. The powerful thought that had been stirring in Eleanor's mind grew into a clear, shining idea. It was more than just a thought, it was a mission. "These women," she murmured to herself one evening, reflecting on the faces she'd seen at the Haven. "They need something special. Something just for them." She knew exactly how they felt. The sting of betrayal, the feeling of being discarded, the crushing belief that their best years were behind them. But Eleanor also knew, deep down, that life could begin after 60. She was living proof, even in her raw state. She imagined a safe, warm place within the Haven, a program specifically designed for women over 60. It wouldn't just offer practical help. It would offer hope, friendship, and a chance to dream again. They could share stories, learn new skills, discover hidden talents, and most importantly, find a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving. It was about showing these women that they were valuable, visible, and capable of finding deep joy, even after heartbreaking change. The idea filled her with an energy she hadn't felt since before Richard's betrayal. It gave her a reason to wake up, a reason to push through her own pain. She saw faces smiling, hands held in comfort, and heard laughter echoing through the halls. This program, she decided, would be her answer to the emptiness, her way to turn her own deep hurt into something good and powerful. Eleanor felt a quiet determination set in. She would create this space. She would help these women find their spark again. With her new mission burning bright, Eleanor knew she couldn't do it alone. The next day, she approached Maria, the director of the Haven, with a mixture of nerves and excitement. "Maria," she began, "I've been thinking about some of the women who come here, especially those who are older, who've been through a lot, like me." She then poured out her heart, explaining her vision for a special program just for women over 60. She spoke of the feelings of invisibility, the lost purpose, and the chance to build a new life after betrayal. Maria listened carefully, her kind eyes growing wide with understanding. When Eleanor finished, a wide smile spread across Maria's face. "Eleanor," she exclaimed, "that's a wonderful idea. I've seen exactly what you're talking about, and it breaks my heart. We've always wanted to do more for that age group, but haven't had the right person to lead it." Maria assured Eleanor that she would have the Haven's full support. Encouraged, Eleanor then shared her idea with Clara and a few other trusted volunteers. Clara immediately offered to help with teaching basic computer skills, something many older women needed. Another volunteer, a retired artist named Susan, offered to lead art classes, suggesting that creative expression could be a powerful tool for healing. The enthusiasm was catching. Everyone agreed that this was a much-needed program. Eleanor felt a wave of relief and joy. Her mission, once a solitary dream, was now a shared vision, surrounded by helping hands ready to build it with her. With Maria's blessing and the volunteers' eager help, Eleanor threw herself into building the program. It was a whirlwind of planning, phone calls, and brainstorming sessions. She named it Second Bloom, a nod to the idea that life could flourish beautifully at any age. Eleanor carefully designed workshops, thinking about what she herself had needed and what she'd heard from the women at the Haven. The program would start with gentle, supportive group discussions, where women could share their stories and realize they weren't alone. Then, it would move into more active workshops. Clara would indeed teach basic computer skills, helping women connect with the world and perhaps even find new opportunities. Susan's art classes would encourage creative expression, a way to release feelings without words. Eleanor also planned sessions on mindful walking, simple cooking classes to encourage healthy eating, and even a book club to spark new ideas and conversations. She made sure to include activities focused on simply having fun and making new friends, like regular tea parties and board game afternoons. Eleanor understood that rediscovering oneself wasn't just about healing old wounds, but also about planting new seeds of joy and connection. She worked tirelessly, fueled by her own past pain but driven by a powerful vision of what these women could become. Every detail, from the comfortable chairs in the meeting room to the gentle pace of the sessions, was chosen to help women feel safe, valued, and ready to embark on their own second bloom. Quote, "The day of the first second bloom meeting arrived, and Eleanor felt a familiar mix of nerves and hopeful excitement. She had arranged the room herself, setting out comfortable chairs in a circle, placing a vase of cheerful wildflowers in the center, and brewing a fresh pot of coffee. Flyers had been posted around the community center, and Maria had helped spread the word. At the appointed time, the first woman arrived, a slender woman with neatly combed white hair and cautious eyes named Margaret. Then came Martha, a little heavier, leaning on a cane, her face etched with worry. Slowly, 2 more women joined them, making a small group of 4, along with Eleanor. It wasn't a huge crowd, but each woman carried a quiet hope, a flicker of curiosity in her gaze. Eleanor greeted them warmly, her heart thumping. "Welcome to Second Bloom," she began, her voice steady despite her inner jitters. "This is a place for us to share, to learn, and to grow together. A place where we can remember that life can still be full of joy and new beginnings, no matter what we've been through." She spoke from her own heart, sharing just enough of her story to let them know she understood. As she talked, the cautiousness in the women's eyes softened a little. There was a shared glance, a small nod, a tentative sense of connection forming in the room. It was a small beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless, filled with the promise of healing and friendship. Even with Eleanor's heartfelt welcome, the first few Second Bloom meetings were quiet, almost painfully so. The women, bruised by life's unfairness, carried their hurts like heavy shields. Margaret, though present, rarely spoke above a whisper, her eyes often downcast. Martha, despite her physical struggles, seemed more scared to share her feelings than to face her pain alone. It was clear that years of feeling invisible and dismissed had taught them to be wary, to protect their tender hearts. Eleanor understood. She remembered her own paralysis after Richard's betrayal. She knew that trust wasn't given easily, especially when it had been so cruelly broken. So she didn't push. Instead, she listened, truly listened, to every hesitant word, every unspoken sigh. She shared small, comforting anecdotes from her own journey, always careful not to make it about herself, but to show them that she walked a similar path. She made sure the tea was always warm, the room inviting, and her smile unwavering. Slowly, very slowly, tiny cracks appeared in their shields. During an art class led by Susan, Martha, who insisted she couldn't draw a stick figure, found herself laughing as she splattered bright colors onto a canvas. Margaret, in a computer class with Clara, hesitantly typed a letter to a long-lost cousin, a connection she hadn't dared to dream of. Eleanor celebrated these small steps with genuine joy, praising their efforts, no matter how small. It was hard work, requiring endless patience and empathy, but Eleanor knew that every little breakthrough was a victory, chipping away at their fear and building the fragile bridge of trust. The patience and gentle encouragement of Eleanor and the other volunteers slowly began to bear fruit. The small victories, at first almost unnoticeable, started to add up. Margaret, the quiet woman who had once been so withdrawn, found a voice in Susan's art class. With each stroke of her brush, she remembered a passion for painting she'd had in her youth, long forgotten amidst the demands of family life. Soon, her canvases were filled with vibrant colors, reflecting a blossoming inner world. Her art wasn't just paint on canvas, it was a testament to her rediscovered spirit. Then there was Martha, whose worry-etched face slowly softened. After a few weeks of second bloom, she heard about a local walking club for seniors. Eleanor encouraged her, reminding her of the strength she'd already shown. With a newfound confidence, Martha decided to give it a try. The simple act of stepping out, joining a group, and moving her body brought a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She came back to the center beaming, talking about the fresh air and the friendly faces she'd met. These were more than just new hobbies. They were tiny acts of rebellion against the idea that their lives were over. They were women reclaiming parts of themselves that had been lost or buried. Eleanor watched these transformations with a swelling heart. Each small step, each hesitant smile that turned into genuine laughter, was a confirmation that Second Bloom was working. It proved that purpose and joy weren't just for the young. They were for anyone brave enough to seek them, no matter their age or past hurts. As Eleanor watched the women of Second Bloom begin to blossom, something profound happened within her. The deep, raw pain of Richard's betrayal, which had once felt like an open wound, began to slowly, gently close. It wasn't that the memories vanished, or that the hurt disappeared entirely. Instead, its sharpness dulled, replaced by a sense of calm strength. Each time she saw Margaret proudly showing off a new painting, or Martha eagerly recounting her walking club adventures, Eleanor felt a warmth spread through her chest. Her own broken heart was mending, stitch by stitch, with every smile she inspired, every story she listened to, and every encouraging word she offered. She was no longer just a betrayed wife. She was a leader, a mentor, a friend. The "what now" feeling that had haunted her 60th birthday had been answered, not by finding another partner or a fancy new hobby, but by serving others. This mission, born from her deepest hurt, had given her a purpose more powerful and fulfilling than anything she had known before. She realized that by helping these women find their own second bloom, she was experiencing her own. Her life, once defined by another, was now vibrantly, authentically her own. The betrayal hadn't ended her story, it had given her the courage to write its most meaningful chapter yet. The quiet victories within Second Bloom didn't stay quiet for long. The women who found new purpose and joy became living advertisements for the program. Margaret, with her vibrant paintings, started telling her friends about the art class. Martha, invigorated by her walking club, encouraged her neighbors to try the computer workshops. Word spread like a gentle breeze, carried by the renewed spirits of the participants. Soon, the small group of 4 women grew to 8, then 12, then 20. The room that once held a hesitant circle of chairs now buzzed with laughter and chatter. New faces appeared each week, drawn by the promise of understanding and a chance to start fresh. The Haven's director, Maria, had to find a larger room to hold the growing community. Second Bloom became more than just a series of workshops. It became a true haven within the haven. Women shared recipes, celebrated birthdays, and even organized small outings together, like trips to the local botanical garden or afternoon movies. Friendships blossomed, deep and true, built on shared experiences and mutual support. Eleanor watched with a full heart as the women, once feeling invisible and alone, formed a vibrant, loving community. They were proving every single day that age was just a number, and that the capacity for joy, connection, and new beginnings was boundless. The air in the room, once heavy with unspoken sadness, now hummed with the joyful energy of women reclaiming their lives. The success of Second Bloom was truly measured in the transformed lives of its participants. Take Joan, for instance. At 68, she had lost her home and felt utterly hopeless after her husband of 40 years left her for a younger woman. She arrived at the haven with nothing but a small suitcase and a heart full of despair. Through Second Bloom, she joined the cooking classes and found a surprising talent for baking. Soon, she was selling her delicious pies at local markets, earning enough to rent a small apartment and rebuild her life with dignity. Then there was Beatrice, a quiet woman in her early 70s who had spent her entire life caring for others and never pursuing her own interests. After her husband passed away, she felt utterly lost. The art classes with Susan sparked a hidden love for pottery. Beatrice's hands, once busy with household chores, now sculpted beautiful, intricate pieces. Her pottery became a way for her to express her emotions and connect with a creative community, filling her days with purpose and joy she never knew was possible. And finally, there was Carol, who, after a painful divorce, had become isolated and afraid to leave her house. Eleanor's gentle encouragement led her to the mindful walking group. Slowly, step by step, Carol rediscovered the simple pleasure of fresh air and friendly conversation. She began hosting the Second Bloom book club at her home, her once empty house now filled with lively discussions and the warmth of new friendships. These were just a few of the many heartwarming stories that proved Eleanor's program was a true lifeline. The quiet triumphs of Second Bloom soon caught the attention of the wider community. Maria, the director of the Haven, was immensely proud of Eleanor's dedication and the profound impact her program was having. During their annual fundraiser, Maria publicly honored Eleanor, praising her vision and tireless efforts. The women of Second Bloom gave her a standing ovation, their happy faces a testament to her work. Eleanor, usually modest, felt a surge of humble pride. Not long after, a local newspaper reporter, alerted by Maria, came to visit the Haven. The reporter spent an afternoon speaking with Eleanor, Margaret, Joan, and others, listening to their stories of heartbreak and renewal. The resulting article, beautifully written and featuring photos of the women happily engaged in their workshops, appeared on the front page of the community section. It highlighted how Second Bloom was transforming lives, offering hope to women who thought their best years were behind them. The phone at the Haven began ringing off the hook. Women from neighboring towns called, eager to join. Donations poured in, allowing the program to expand its offerings and reach even more people. Eleanor, who had once felt so small and lost, now found herself at the center of a movement. The public recognition wasn't just for her. It was for every woman who dared to believe that life could begin again after 60, a powerful message echoing throughout the community. 5 years had passed since that devastating morning when Eleanor's world crumbled. Now, at 65, she was almost unrecognizable from the lost, heartbroken woman she had been. Her laughter echoed freely through the halls of the Haven, a genuine, joyful sound. Her eyes, once clouded with sadness, now sparkled with a vibrant light, reflecting the purpose that filled her days. Eleanor was not just healed, she was thriving. The pain of Richard's betrayal had been transformed, not forgotten but reshaped into a powerful drive to help others. She had built a new life, richer and more meaningful than she could have ever imagined. She had found a profound sense of self-worth, not in being a wife, but in being a catalyst for change, a beacon of hope for countless women. Her days were full, but in a good way. She was at the Haven most mornings, overseeing Second Bloom, mentoring new volunteers, and warmly greeting every woman who walked through the door. In the afternoons, she often met friends from the program for coffee or a walk. Her evenings were peaceful, filled with a good book or quiet reflection, no longer overshadowed by loneliness or regret. Eleanor often thought about her 60th birthday, the one that had felt like an ending. Now, she knew it was merely the beginning, the moment her own powerful Second Bloom had truly started. She was happier, more fulfilled, and more authentically herself than she had ever been. Eleanor's journey had blossomed into a thriving reality. Years after its modest beginning, Second Bloom was more robust than ever, a true testament to its enduring power. The program had become a cornerstone of the Haven, offering not just workshops, but a vibrant community where older women felt seen, heard, and valued. New volunteers, inspired by Eleanor's story and the visible transformations of the participants, joined the team, bringing fresh ideas and energy. The initial art and computer classes expanded to include gardening, creative writing, and even gentle yoga sessions, all tailored to help women explore new facets of themselves. The tea parties had evolved into lively potlucks, filled with shared recipes and laughter. The sense of belonging was palpable, a warm embrace for every woman who walked through its doors. Eleanor, still at the heart of it all, often looked around the bustling room filled with women chatting, learning, and laughing, and felt a profound sense of peace. Her program wasn't just a temporary fix, it was a lasting legacy. It stood as a powerful reminder to the entire community. that life doesn't end when challenges arise or when age advances. Instead, it can open up entirely new possibilities. Second Bloom proved, day after day, that it is truly never too late to heal, to find joy, and to embark on a brand new, wonderful beginning. The seeds of hope Eleanor planted had grown into a beautiful, flourishing garden. Eleanor's journey began with the crushing weight of betrayal, a heartbreak that threatened to define her entire future. But from that very pain, a remarkable mission was born, one that not only healed her own spirit, but ignited a spark in countless other women. Her story, the tale of Second Bloom, became a living testament to the idea that life doesn't end with a broken heart or a milestone birthday. Instead, it can open up to a beautiful, purposeful second act. She proved that even when everything you thought was true crumbles, you have the strength to rebuild, not just for yourself, but for others. Eleanor didn't seek revenge or dwell in bitterness. Instead, she chose to channel her hurt into creating a space where other women, feeling just as lost and invisible, could find their own way back to joy and purpose. Her life, now vibrant and full, echoes a powerful message. Betrayal doesn't have to be an ending. It can be a turning point. It can be the unexpected push that leads you to discover your true calling, to connect with a community, and to live a life richer and more fulfilling than you ever imagined. Eleanor, once the quiet heart of her family, became the beating heart of a movement, showing everyone that at any age, after any setback, a new wonderful life can indeed begin. Her legacy isn't just a program, it's a promise of hope for us all.